Good morning, I am the 3Ps Conservative, and today I will be discussing what is, in my own view, the pros and cons of the left wing. Now, obviously, I may be prone to bias, hence why this is only my own opinion, and a brief overview at that. As always, please exercise your right to freedom of speech and your right to listen. Let me know your view, anything you feel I may have missed, skipped over, or misrepresented in your mind. Pro 1. The left aims to help the majority, as to say they have the best of intentions. This is among my most primary of reasons, as it is why I feel the left is necessary in the world. The left wing forces the right to consider issues facing the people. For example, again, gay marriage. It's something very left wing driven. Although I obviously disagree with their methods, the left is needed to enforce social change, which isn't related to the economy. Take the Australian Whitlam government. Despite their being removed after 3 years and failing financially, they made necessary changes towards helping Aboriginal communities, and the Whitlam government deserves credit for making necessary progress in the road to, quote, closing the gap. In stark contrast to this comes Con 2. The radical left. Now, I acknowledge the right has radical extremists as well. However, it can be more easily and correctly be identified as religious extremists. The left, typically being atheists, mean their radicals are much more ideological ones, and the ideological left wing at that. Take, for example, feminism. Now, I don't really mind if you're a feminist or not, at least not yet. However, campaigns like Ban, Bossy, Shirtstorm, and forcing men on university campuses to attend anti-rape classes, just to name a few things, shows how something which is said to have started as a push for equal rights between the sexes can quickly change into whining about non-existent problems. Take in case the lie of the gender pay gap, the lie of a, quote, rape culture. This is of course also being seen in this brand of Islamophobia, which is essentially complaining when somebody questions a belief you have chosen to take up, despite there being no evidence, along with the general double standards of the left. I hear nothing about Christian phobia or Mormon phobia when people ridicule them. Similarly, I don't recall anyone killing Monty Python for making The Life of Brian. Pro 2. The left is good at getting youth into politics. Now, I understand this may be considered a stretch on my part, but to quote Winston Churchill, if you aren't a liberal at 20, you're heartless. If you're not a conservative at 40, you're brainless. I guess that makes me heartless, but in any case, the right wing doesn't tend to appeal to youth, and if people growing up being jaded about democracy because candidates don't represent them, then come age 40 they will remain that way, rather than having taken an alternative political view, i.e. the right. Democracy revolves around people understanding and wanting to understand politics. The left in many ways is necessary for that. Con 2. They are typically big spenders. Now, I understand Australian leaders like Paul Keating and American leaders like Bill Clinton break this rule, which is why I say typically. However, the bigger governments' want-and privatisation and general concept of how money works tends to leave them to spend big and leave big debts. In short, they only remember the first part of the old saying, you have to spend money to make money. Lots of the time, low unemployment and economic growth is confused for running a country well. In reality, the left usually causes inflation, which I'll discuss later, but for now it's pretty much a widely unnoticed tax which is able to steal your buying power without you doing anything. It is supply and demand. The more there is of something, i.e. money, the less it is worth. The left is needed to maintain balance. Pro 3. I acknowledge it's similar to the first pro, but this applies in both politics and the free markets. The left is required in politics to ensure there is debate and nothing goes through unchecked, and in free markets, as I've said before, some things just can't be privatized. Some things have to be owned by the government, and that certainly isn't part of the right wing's fundamentalist objectives. Hence why you have people like Paul Keating and Bill Clinton who are able to actually improve the country through an economically left style of finance. And this is mostly based in Australia, but the left is too close to the unions. I apologise to non-Australian viewers, but essentially the Labor Party, a left party, and its candidates are built on the backs of former union members and bosses. The ABC's Killing Season showed us Julia Gillard's rise came from union backing, as did Kevin Rudd's fall, and as does current opposition leaders Bill Shorten's rise come. Pro 4. Moderate left-wingers and moderate right-wingers can make progress. Admittedly not my strongest pro, However, when moderates from either side of the political of a viewpoint meet, great discussion and progress can be made. Compromise between the two is required by Parliament and can help the country. When it comes to the mainstream of right, I would really honestly much rather a left party and a right party than a right party and a far right party. On 5. The left often expresses the idea of the ends justify the means. I'm not saying this can't be applicable, however, when the left's tendency to take the moral high ground leads to them acting in rather amoral ways, and considering them acceptable. Take, for example, anti-gay marriage people being spat on in Ireland. Clearly not a reasonable thing to do, but the left tends to demonize the, quote, enemy, as phobic this and bigot that, to the point where they can act bigoted towards them and feel just. Con 6. Being anti-freedom of speech. The left very much rely on freedom of expression when they try to justify ISIS or condemn religion, and they are entitled to express these views. But when the tables are turned, they are not so gracious. Take Tim Hunt, who lost almost everything after having making the suggestion that men and women should work in separate science labs, because either, quote, men fall in love with women, women fall in love with men, or /and women cry. He was severely punished for expressing his observations. Or take Andrew Bolt, who has been in court more than once for expressing his point of view. Where is the uproar from the left that France imprisons people for denying the Holocaust or /and the Armenian massacre? In short, the left supports freedom of speech for themselves, but not their, quote, enemy. Con 7. The left is anti-success. This can be shown by a simple observation. What started the March on Wall Street? The left wing. The left wing always wants to tax the rich more and help out the poor. They want to fight with the underdog. If you drop out of uni and live from paycheck to paycheck, does the left say that's your fault? No, they say that's the bank's fault. They say it's the 1% that control all the wealth. The left, for some reason, feels justified in trying to take as much wealth as they can from companies and individuals as possible, as they apply the mentality capitalism and hard work is good until you start having too much money. Imagine a child who saved up his pocket money for months in order to buy something, only to be told that half of his money is going to be taken because he has so much, and given to another child which spent all of his, never saves up, and has nothing. It's certainly not fair or just or equal, and the left is typically fickle when it comes to this. Con 8. The left is anti-freedom. By this I mean the left are always the ones trying to dictate what you can do and how you can do it. The left spearheaded the Australian attack on the free market with seemingly no resistance, when they assumed the right to dictate the price of a product, dictate the packaging of a product, dictate what it could be where it could be advertised, or really that it couldn't, and dictate that it couldn't be displayed in stores. All because the product was cigarettes. Now, I'm not saying it's good to do smoking and that you should try it, but it doesn't mean that a person should lose the right to decide what he or she does. Or surely an individual has the right to make up their own choices as to what product they will buy. Surely a company has a right to set its own prices. And I assure you that America isn't immune from the left trying to dictate what freedoms are either. To quote the play, A Man for All Seasons, what would you do? Cut a great road through the law to get after the devil? I'd cut down every law in England to do that. Oh, and then when the last law was down, and the devil turned round on you, where would you hide, Roper? All the laws being flat.